Hi, I'm Russell Smelley,
And I'm Allison Smelley.
and we're going to talk to you today about suffering. And we are not experts on this, just life participants like all the rest of you who are watching this. But a short synopsis of our story, which brought us to talk about suffering. Uh, Besides the usual things of losing a parent or things that happen in life, we also lost a daughter, Alyssa Ann, in 2006 from a brain tumor, which came upon us unexpectedly. And then, 13 months after Alyssa died on July 4th, 2006, Allison was diagnosed with breast cancer and went through successful treatment of that. But then, 13 months after she was diagnosed, our house burned down in the Tea Fire, and that was a blow of its own kind. And then that's all the follow-up and things we went through to get back to, I guess we say, homeostasis here was a long journey as well, and part of our grieving. So, in our ordeal and the suffering, we didn't deal with the whys, we dealt with the whats. What do we need to do to deal with this? And that was a better place for us to be than worrying about how could this happen to us. And as our friend said, why not happen to us? Because things do happen to people. So I'm not opposed to suffering. It's my job. I'm a track and field coach. And it takes some suffering in order to get better as a runner. So a little discipline and suffering causes growth. And this is harking back to last week's sermon from Doug on Hebrews 13. But this is a practice suffering. It's with intention for success. So suffering plus recovery equals growth. And it's something that we do to get better. But life suffering is a reality. And all of us are going to suffer loss. As a matter of fact, all of us have. Even as a kid, when you lost a game that you really wanted to win or didn't get the Christmas present you wanted, that was a sense of loss. So really, life loss and suffering is about magnitude. How big is the loss? And we all tend to face loss and deal with loss and grieving based on how we live our lives day to day. So we have to take a look at ourselves even today and say, how do I take care of myself? So I'm going to let Allison go into this with you, and because we need to just talk about how we dealt with these things, and maybe you'll find some help in that.
So I think one thing is that suffering is very disorienting. And so it felt unfamiliar to me. My daily routines and daily things weren't necessarily comforting. And so I want to share with you just a few things that were comforting, ways that God really soothed me and met me during this time. One of the things was in community to be able to lean on other people's faith when I felt like my faith just felt weak. So spent time with my closest friends, letting them just encourage me, listen to me, look at them, and realize that I could lean on their faith during this time when I felt weak. Someone in our community sent me a book called Healing After Loss by Martha Whitmore Hickman. And this book was so important to me for years, really. Short devotionals written by someone who had experienced loss herself. And her words took me only a couple minutes to read every day, but I felt like her words gave words to my story and helped me face the loss that I was experiencing. She also wrote a book called I Will Not Leave You Desolate, where she literally talked about her story of loss, and I was able to face my own loss through her words to me. Music is very important in my life, but at that time I felt like my piano was not soothing to me. So someone else in our life had sent me a song by an artist named Jana Alera, and she had lost a daughter herself. And there was one line in one of her songs that just was powerful to me. It's this: every minute that I breathe, you live what I believe. And those words helped me think about how I trusted in God that Alyssa was now living what I believed about eternal life. And I would listen to that, I would sing it, I would pray it, and her words as part of my community, even though I didn't even know her, were powerful to me. Chris Rice wrote a song called Fly to Jesus that I feel like our whole family leaned on during that time. Other worship music that I would just listen to, read the words of, helped me remember what I truly believed. Many of the old hymns, I would read the words again and again. Great is thy faithfulness, O God my Father. I would just count on other people's words bringing me into God's presence. I think Russell and I both felt it was hard to pray for a while. And so I was leaning on prayers that had already been written. Richard Foster has a book called Prayers from the Heart, and they're prayers that I literally prayed to God using someone else's words, reading my own story into it. And that's not something I had done much before, but it became powerful to me when I was disoriented through the suffering and the grieving that we were experiencing. The 23rd Psalm took on new meaning as I prayed my story into that prayer, and the Lord's Prayer, and many old prayers that were prayed centuries ago that I could pray today with new meaning. Other people's stories in books were powerful to me. Dallas Willard became a mentor to me during that time through books. I don't know him, but he, as part of my community, was very important. And then our literal community, allowing other people in, accepting help, receiving their help, being vulnerable to not be the helper, to be the one being helped. So those are some specific ways that my larger community really spoke into my life during this time of suffering.
And I approached the grieving and the loss differently than Allison, but we clung to each other through all this because we needed one another, and we had a community around us in our family group at Westmont and especially at our church who just supported us. And Denny and the other pastors were purposeful in finding us and seeking us out. So, and in my own experience, my faith didn't suffer, but I was mad deep down. And I kind of summarized that mad by saying, okay, God, I'm going for coffee. If you want to come along, fine. And it took a long time to move past that almost resentment of how hard and then the loss of Alyssa and other things. So life suffering requires a few things. I'm just going to list things that we can do. Self-awareness, knowing who you are, how you're doing, and what you need to do to take care of yourself. Vulnerability, the willingness, as Allison said, to accept help. And if it doesn't make sense to you, listen to or read anything Brene Brown has written. Community, and we've mentioned that over and over. The people around us walked to our door, came in, and took care of us. Resilience, the willingness to not give up in the face of something that's devastating and to keep trying to move forward. And so you're living in the moment without reliving the past, though you're acknowledging it, or yearning for the future to get out of it. And that means you have to have a sense of hope that it won't be like this forever. And there's acceptance, absorbing the loss into our life over time. And it is a life process, because initially it's just the pain of loss, this utter devastated feeling that nothing will ever be the same. And then there's the process of grieving. What do we have to go through to get to the other side? We have to go, as Henry Nouwen says, in and through. We can't go around it, under it, or over it. We have to go in and through to get to the sense of grieving, to depart overall. And then we arrive at compassion for ourselves, and really a lot more even for others. That there are no pat answers. There are no ways to just explain it away or make people feel better. How can you feel better other than to give a hug and sit and listen? And I borrowed these words. I don't have my source, but Grief never ends, but it does change as we absorb it into your life. And grief and loss are a life passage, but not a place to stay. We don't want to live there. And grief is not a sign of weakness, nor a lack of faith. It's actually dealing with life genuinely and openly. And grief ultimately is the price of love and having cared about others. And there's pain in that, and there's joy as well. So I encourage you to open the door to compassion, first for yourself, and then for others, and deal with your losses. And losses can be 30 years ago, and they can be today, but they must be dealt with us in order to grow. Pain and suffering plus recovery equals growth. And we are going to offer to the pastors a list of books that we found helpful in going through suffering and grief and loss. And they can hopefully post that on the website at church, or you can contact Allison and me about that. Thank you for letting us share with you, and we hope that you found some help today.
Thank you.
This has been Wednesday Word with the Free Methodist Church of Santa Barbara. We hope you will join us for worship this week. We will be gathering live under the tent at 9:30 a.m. and we'll be live streaming the service online at 9:30 a.m. as well. We hope to see you there.